Welcome everyone. My name is Anna Chiara, and I am the Europe organizer at the War Beyond War. And welcome to this webinar to get inspired by protests against military bases and facilities in Europe and Asia Pacific. The webinar is organized by GWAN, Global Women for Peace United Against NATO, with the support of many different organizations that I'm going to list now. The Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, CND, the No to War, No to NATO Network, Stop Air Base Ramstein, with Italy, Sortir de Nuclear Pays Nantais, Mujeres de Negros, Women in Black Madrid, War Beyond War, the International Peace Bureau, the International Women Pays Nantais, Mujeres de Negros, Women in Black Madrid, War Beyond War, the International Peace Bureau, the International Women's Alliance, and Women for Peace Finland, and also United National Anti-War Coalition, who is also the host for today's Zoom. And thank you, Pippa, also for being the tech support. We're going to start in a couple of minutes, and we're going to hear from different activists. And first of all, I want to invite Ulla to give a welcome from GWAN.
Thank you, Anna Chiara, and thank you for being a moderator. Dear peace promoters all around the world, in these dark times of frustration and anger over the war insanity promoted by our political leaders and supported by the mainstream media, Global Women Peace United Against NATO, also known as GWAN, wants to give you small glimpses of hope. The reports you will get at this webinar from courageous and persistent persons from Europe and Asia Pacific represent only a tiny fraction of all the activities taking place all around the world, and almost totally ignored by mainstream media. But I hope these reports will inspire and encourage you to keep up your precious work for peace, no matter how small and unnoted by the media they are. You are certainly not alone. Enjoy the reports, get new contacts, build new networks, get empowered, and stay strong. Welcome, and I hand over to Anna Chiara. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ulla. So we're going to hear from the first speaker, Sang-Hee Choi from South Korea.
So, thank you for the organizers. This is Sang-Hee Choi. I am living in the Gangjang village, Jeju Island, that you can see in the map in the right side. I have been joining the struggle against the Jeju Navy base for last 16 years. I belong to the Gangjang International Team. I belong to the people opposing, people making Jeju demilitarized peace island, and I also work for the people opposing space militarization and rocket launches. There are various activities against the Jeju Navy base, but for the time concern, here I will focus only to my main activities. Okay, before I start, I want to briefly share what is the geopolitical condition of South Korea. As you know, South Korea is closely located to China, and also it is a strategic NATO partner country, along with Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. And it is not well known that South Korea is conditioned by the so-called the United Nations Command, UN Command, but it is not the legal command. It is actually the United States military led multinational group, which was supposed to be dismantled right after the ceasefire in 1953 of the Korean War, but it stayed, for the interest of the United States. But the important thing is that it has about 18 member nations, and among them, about 12 nations are the membership of the NATO. They are, of course, United States and France, Canada, Turkey, UK, Belgium, Denmark, Greece, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, and Germany. They are the 12 NATO countries. The UNC has its real command in Japan. In Japan, there are USFK, USFJ, and then they are the well-known bases such as Yokota, Yokosuka, and Camp Jama, and Sasebo, and also three bases in Okinawa. They are Kadena, Futenma, and the White Beach. I am saying this to emphasize what is the geopolitical condition of South Korea, and then if something emergency breaks out in the Northeast Asia, the war can extend to global, bringing many NATO countries. So I briefly explained the geopolitical condition of the South Korea, but my main point today is the struggle in Jeju, which is located at the southern tip of the Korean Peninsula. The Jeju Navy base is officially South Korean base. It was completed in 2016, so 10 years so far. And for last 10 years, there have been about 20 times of the foreign ships from the United States, mostly from the United States, but about twice from 2 or 3 times from Australia and 1 time from Canada too. They are the members of the UNC countries. And there have been about 1 nuclear aircraft carrier, U.S. nuclear aircraft carrier, and the 3 times of the nuclear submarine, U.S. nuclear submarine. The thing is that it is a South Korean base, but because of the mutual defense treaty between the United States and South Korea, the United States military can use South Korean military bases and facility anytime she wants. So here are activists who are protesting against the United States warships, and then it is only a small fraction. There are actually many various activities going on. Okay, so now I point the militarization of Jeju beside the Jeju Navy base. In the map, you can see the number 3. It is the Jeju Navy base where I live now, the Gangjong village. I want to say, for last 10 years, the militarization of space in Jeju Island was mainly led by the space industry, which is my point today. And if you compare the map in the above and in the below, you can see more black, which means the completion. So the only color purple is which means the still in the planning stage. So you can see that the more places now colored with black, which means the militarization within next 3 years now. And then they are the radars, and then or the rocket launches. Yes. So here are our protests. And then you can see the letters that stop the space industry. We oppose the space industry. It is because it accelerates the militarization as well as it aggravates the climate disaster. And then here, the site is called the National Satellite Integration Operations Center. And then they are related to South Korea National Intelligence Service, NIS, which is like a CIA in the United States. And the antennas, they manage South Korea's whole the low Earth satellites. And then the space industry in South Korea is actually now in the beginning stage. I wanted to say that the name national can be also the private, which means the space industry is like a collaboration between the government and the corporation. And which means in the militarization of Jeju, it is not only the military, but also the corporations who is leading the militarization in Jeju Island now. So now there is the private companies rocket launches. It was in 2021, and then I witnessed myself 3 times. And then in the bottom, you can see our banner. And I could see how the birds were losing their way after the small rocket was launched. And then here is another company, bigger company, called Hanwha Systems. You might have heard the name Hanwha, which is actually the biggest arms corporation in South Korea now. And Hanwha is a very infamous arms company. It is cooperating with Israel, contributing to the killings of Palestinians. The Hanwha Systems has now built its own space center in the middle of the Jeju Island, actually on the underground water special management area, which means the important site for the islanders' drinking water. They built the space center, which produced the satellites. It is before that, and they are not only making the satellites, but they are also making the rocket launch test in the southern water of Jeju Island. You can see the video in the next slide. Oh, sorry, it doesn't work very well. It's somehow stopped. You know, if you see the horizon, there is a small, the scene. It is the sea platform, and you could see the rocket launched, from the sea to the sky. I'm sorry that the video is not working. The play button is not working.
So
Yes.
perhaps you can shut it down and start it again.
Oh yeah, I think my computer has some problem. It's just stuck right now. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Okay, sorry. Actually, it was very horrible video, but I think that I have talked what is the point of the militarization of Jeju so far, along with the space industry. There are more slides I want to show you. Okay, Yeah, actually, the launch occurred just about the 15 minutes car distance from the Jeju Navy base, the Gangjong village where I live. Yeah. So we have been making die-in protest, and then we have been collecting the signatures which demand the halt of the rocket launches, which is because it hides the missile test, as I understand. Okay, sorry, last slide. It's another story. I wanted to add this story because we have now young activists who have sailed to Gaza twice. And I wanted to say she grew up during our anti-base struggle. So the Gangjang is like her hometown. That how she became now became an activist for Palestine. So that's it. That's my presentation so far. It was a very, the brief, and I missed many things, but thank you for listening to me. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanghi. Thank you for sharing. The next speaker is Corazon Fabros from the Philippines.
So soon. Anyway, good evening, everyone. It's nighttime here. And thank you so much for this opportunity. It has been truly, really inspiring to see a lot of women speaking through the forums that are being organized by the Global Women United Against NATO. And I think that also I'd like to say that speaking after Songhi, where the Gangyong struggle has been one of the very inspiring struggle in the region today, in addition to, of course, Okinawa. So I'm going to focus on the current developments in the Philippines. Next slide, please. I'll try to make my presentation short. Next slide. Oh gosh. Okay, so just very quickly, this is where I would go through a very brief historical overview. Because the Philippines have, now being positioned in the military alliance against China, which we kind of call that a forward tripwire state. That's what the Philippines is. The three phases of modern bases. I wanted to take this up because usually, projects like these are tested in the Philippines, and this is now what is being offered to the other parts of Southeast Asia in particular. And then, of course, the Luzon Economic Corridor, particularly Pax Silica, as the Philippines transforms into its adoption of dual use of base, meaning it's not only military, but it is economic. And then, of course, a very brief call to action and some photos that you could see. So whatever I could gather. Next slide. Okay, just to say that we have been fortunate to have had the opportunity to, to be able to close the U.S. bases in the Philippines, the biggest in Asia Pacific in the 90s. And but that was in 1991. So the last plane out, and the ship bade farewell a year after that. And so that we were happy, of course. But then it took only about a year, 10 years. We tried to stop the return, but we were not fortunate to be able to to maintain the absence of the U.S. bases in the Philippines. So in the year 2000, we now have seen the return of U.S. bases. So next slide. And this is where, as I said, we have now been transformed into dual-use infrastructure in the Philippines. Next slide. Okay, so as I said in the beginning, the Philippines have been now developed into a forward tripwire state, which means that it is, a force positioned to ensure escalation, not necessarily victory. So, and that's where the Philippines is the direction. Of course, we have the 9 EDCA sites. I will explain that a bit later. Of course, the mid-range capable missile centers are being built in the Philippines. At least now we have 2 or 3 that have been developed already. And then, of course, the trade-off, what the government is offering and saying that this is a very positive thing, is that we do have a policy space for a seat on someone else's war machine. Right? I mean, it's so it's so disgusting that is the direction that the current government have chosen to follow. Next slide. As I said, there are 3 phases of modern bases. We used to see only permanent base, the likes of Subic and Clark. What we see now in Korea and maybe particularly in Okinawa and Japan, those are the permanent base, big, enclosed, and oftentimes extraterritorial rights for the U.S. And then, of course, and then we eventually became rotational bases. Which means that it is it is considered as a temporary base, but it is not, in the sense that after several months, they are actually replaced with the same number of troops, or even more. And then now, this is where we are now, which means that the government has accepted dual-use military bases. And I think I will focus a bit on this, because this is very important nowadays. This is the Luzon Economic Corridor, particularly PAC Silica, which has something to do with resources and artificial intelligence centers that are not only economic as it is being considered, but it is actually very much a link to the military infrastructure and direction of the U.S. In the Philippines, in the region. So next slide, please. You will see the map here. I just wanted it to be more visual for all of us. The red ones are where the military exercises are happening. So I have to say that the most recent military exercise in the Philippines, the biggest, in the history of the Philippines, 17,000 troops came using the different areas in the Philippines, and military training, in the name of interoperability. But plainly, we say this is a preparation for war. And I would like to add that, these military exercises are actually opportunities for the military-industrial complex to introduce their military hardware and weaponry and sell them. And so that is the reason why we see for the past 5 years that the military expenses in Asia and the Pacific have the highest increase so far. Next slide. So I'm not going to explain the signs here. The red ones were the, and of course, I mean, it's very clear where ship visits happen, specific kinds of exercises. But I'd like to call your attention, for example, where there are now, the Philippines have entered into a situation where it will now be part of military production of weaponry, particularly in two places, which is Subic and another in Mindanao. Next slide. Okay, if we look at the EDCA sites, the places that have stars in the previous maps indicates, you know, the EDCA sites, Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement sites, and most of these are using the Philippine military bases with their own facilities inside the Philippine military bases. So we kind of call this the bases within the base, because that was the arrangement. But quite lately, with the increase of facilities that are being already built, there are independent areas that are now being built, which will take on more important functions, no? Meaning that it's not only fuels and runway and all this production of armory, but also in particular when we look at the northern areas, which is an area that faces the West Philippine Sea or the South China Sea, and in particular Taiwan. No, so these are all in the northern part of the Philippines. That basically is the reason why we are deeply concerned, because if there is going to be any conflict that is going to happen within that area, the Philippines will definitely be involved. Next slide, please. Okay, if we look at this, I just want to show this because to emphasize, you know, that the Philippines is in the middle of the first island chain, no? Meaning this stretches up to Japan, of course, Okinawa, and down to the rest of Southeast Asia. And being that it is very strategic and very important that the Philippines is being developed beyond the, you know, very simple role, but a very important role. And this is now a very important partnership with the regional anchors, which are Japan, South Korea, and Australia. So our friends who are from that region will explain particularly AUKUS and other things. So next, I think, and very important at this point, is PAC Silica. Do we have the slides now? Okay, this is actually a US-led tech alliance that the Philippines just joined. No, originally there are 13, we heard, but there are more now that is joining. And this is actually in the middle of the Luzon area, no? And this is where also, if we look at the map where the EDCA sites are located, this is also a very important point. No? So what is it really? No, it is actually to build tech supply chains outside, you know, outside China. So you must have already known that one of the key points of competition with China is actually the technology. No. This project focuses on semiconductors, artificial intelligence, minerals, and of course the usual data centers, no? Where there are also plenty of in the Philippines serving other countries. This was established quite recently, but you know, we were told that it has been initiated even last year, and it only came out of the news quite recently. Next slide. Okay.
Corazon, your time is almost finished, or it's finished now. So if you want to wrap up.
Okay, let me wrap up. No, I want to show this a slide. Can we go to this slide, please? It's number 15 slide. I just want to show the importance of this. This is a slide that we used in the Global Days of Action on Military Spending at the International Peace Bureau. If you look at the total military spending, that was 1.92 trillion US dollars. Now, if we look at the military expenditure, it's now almost 3 trillion. In a period of 6 years, that is the increase. And you can imagine that, we also came out with the equivalent. I mean, basically, if we look at the ratio, it's almost the same. This is just to show how much is being lost with our governments putting more money into military spending rather than healthcare, education, food on the table, so on and so forth. Next slide. Yeah. Okay. And then, well, these are calls, and very briefly, I would say we have been. These are the things that we put forward in our campaigns. Cutting the military budget, stopping the war on our livelihoods. Basically, I mean, when we look at the question of militarism, I mean, we cannot avoid but involve all the other issues, climate, economics of it, everything, even cultural. And then, of course, the call to reject Pax Silica, abrogation of unequal military agreements, and a particularly call to defend our sovereignty. So we uphold the West Philippine Sea as a global commons. That's what we want to put forward, free from any naval posturing of both the U.S. and China. It should not become an area where conflict should consider. So I'm going to ask the friend who's operating the slides to show the remaining slides one by one. These are some of the very few actions, some of the actions that we have been doing, and just to give you an idea what's happening. But we'll share more later when we have the opportunity. So can we have the slides one by one and see how it is shown? Where is that? Where am I? Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. Okay, just continue on. These are some that I have gathered last minute just to show you that. And thank you. And of course, my last word would be that I'm happy that we are all sharing information from our own locations. I remember having said back in Ecuador, I think more than 10 years ago, I said that our opponent is international. Therefore, it calls also for a global resistance against the presence of U.S. bases and U.S. hegemony. Well, of course, not only U.S., but maybe even, and of course, even China. We don't want any occupation of our land. So thank you so much. And
thank you, Corazon. Thank you so much. Next up, we have a clip recorded by Liz Rammerswald from New Zealand. So she couldn't join. It's very late in the night, I think. So we're going to have the clip shown.
Kia ora, I'm Liz Rammerswald, and I'm from Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I work with World Beyond War and the Pacific Peace Network. New Zealand is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, well, actually quite near Antarctica, Pacific Islands in Australia, surrounded by water. Quite some years we have been part of the Five Eyes alliance with Australia, Canada, the United Kingdom and the United States, which means we are responsible for surveillance. And one of those places is Waihopai in the top of the South Island, which has been going for over 40 years since it was started in the 80s. People have been protesting there because the information that is collected by the New Zealand government is fed to the United States and it's used for their own purposes. For some years there have been weapons expos in this country, and there have been in Auckland, Wellington and also Palmerston North. Valerie Morse with the Peace Action Network has been working hard for many years to stop those weapons expos. And finally, they have been stopped, I think 2018 was the last one. Many of us gathered and protested in lots of different ways, including peace picnics outside the warships and vigils outside the railway station in Wellington. Dr. Helen Caldicott from Physicians for Social Responsibility came and talked to one of the Auckland rallies, and many other brave actions by protesters to actually make them feel unwelcome and being successful. Unfortunately, there's another kind of military invasion in this country, and that is under the guise of Rocket Lab. And it was brought into this country with the full support of the government of the time, and now is really taking over Mahia Peninsula. Here are some protesters, and here are some signs, and we have asked Sonia Smith from Mahia area, from Ngāti Rangimai Wahine, to explain the impact on her community.
Ia, morena koutou, he mai, ko Sonia Smith tēnei, ngā uri o Rākai Pāka, Rangimai Wahine, ngā tikanganu ki te wairo me whakatohea whānau hoki. Those are my iwi. I live in Nuhaka, and I'm one of a number of people who, to ask questions, the question existence of why Rocket Lab is in Mahia and what are they doing. So that's who I am. So I live approximately, 35 k's as a crow flies from the launch pad. So not the closest. There's a number of people that live a lot closer. And why is Mahia effectively a military installation for Rocket Lab, which is largely an American company? It certainly wasn't sold that way to us when it came to Mahia. It's a commercial launch site of small satellites, and those satellites have been proven to go on to be part of the US military complex. So for us, that is a quasi-military military base. There's no other way to describe it. It's an interesting way to slide a military base into New Zealand. That's certainly how we see it. How does that endanger New Zealand? Well, certainly from a proximity point of view, we're not very happy about it being here. We feel unsafe. We feel a presence here in Mahia, and as discussed recently, many of our whānau talk about the men in black as the joking way we describe a security presence on the peninsula. And the men in black, these people that work for Rocket Lab, are quite a distance from the launch pad, and in public spaces take down number plates and ask what people's business is close to launch time. So, they want to identify people. That creep is happening across the peninsula. So from that point of view, we feel unsafe from a proximity point of view. But the concern is what rocket lab are launching and the American connection. It does create a governance question for Aotearoa. It also asks a question around liability, particularly with members of New Zealand government being taken to International Criminal Court. So what is our position and liability in relation to these military payloads going up from Mahia?
Thank you, Sonia, and thank you to everybody who's working hard to try and make this world a more peaceful place. It's really important that we oppose the spread of NATO all around the world and that we oppose the increase of military spending. Bye-bye.
I'm Maggie Pistorius and I'm in Australia, and I'm just going to make a quick overview of some of the things that are happening in Australia regarding US military bases. And I'll show you a little bit of the history that I've personally been involved in and what the magnificent people of Australia are involved in with at the moment in their resistance to the US bases. Of course, there's been massive renewed activity since October 7th, 2023. This has been, across the country, of course, but here we have at Alice Springs, at Pine Gap, the large US military surveillance and intelligence gathering centre that is at the heart of US operations throughout the world. Here you can see what sorts of bases we have around Australia. This is quite an old picture, and some of these are being updated and renewed. You have a big Air Force base here at Katherine that they're using for actual US operations. You have Darwin, where you have a lot of Marines stationed. You have Perth, which is becoming a centre for submarines. Over here you have Wollongong, which is not even on the map. They're looking for a submarine harbour and base there at Wollongong, though the local people are opposing it greatly. You have a massive area of where they practice Talisman Sabre US Australia invasions in this area here, and they've got Northwest Cape up here, but this is the most significant because of its involvement in US operations. This is me more than 15 years ago now, heading into a very large area about the size of Denmark, where we try to interfere with the US-Australian training that was going on there. And here we have me with a friend heading up. We're in the boundary of the Pine Gap area here. So again, this sort of idea of pilgrimage or nighttime bushwalking with prayer and music here with my friend Franz Dowling and some other friends. Here we are here at the court the next day after being captured. And then the following year we had a very long court case. So there are two major issues in Australia regarding bases. One is the genocide and the active support of the genocide at Pine Gap as a live operations centre. The second issue is two agreements, the AUKUS agreement and the force posture agreement. Both involve bases, and in these agreements, Australia has agreed to host US Marines, Air Force bombers, missiles and submarines, and facilitate the staging of wars in Asia from Australia. Here's a word from Palestinian activist Rima Nahi, who will be speaking at Pine Gap later this year.
I'm against Pine Gap, not only because I'm Palestinian and I understand that the genocide against my own people is made possible thanks to the intelligence going from the heart of this colony in Alice Springs directly to Israeli occupation forces to target and kill men, women and children in Palestine, as if this is not bad enough. I'm also against it because I do not believe in an ideology that only understands domination. Domination at the expense of human life. This is not a world that I want to leave for my kids and the future generation, especially in the collapse of this world order where international law might seem not so relevant. And look, maybe I can't stop a psychopath, war criminal like Netanyahu, I can't stop a pedophile like Trump from committing more war crimes, but I can hold my own government to account, and I can find where we are complicit in facilitating those crimes and put pressure on my own government.
And just finally, from the people of Western Australia.
Department of War, down here this morning in Rockingham with the Stop AUKUS group, and we're here to protest the presence of a US nuclear submarine, USS Vermont, that is here docked right now here in our beautiful Coburn Sound. Now, we oppose AUKUS. We oppose spending $368 billion in this horrific deal with the Americans. We oppose war, militarism, and we can think of such better use of this money.
People are starting to get active. There's a big convergence coming towards the end of next month up in Alice Springs. There's some great speakers at that. Karina Lester, who is one of the descendants of the Maralinga folk who were bombed with nuclear bombs by the British, and Auntie Sue Hasseldine, whose country is being colonised for the launch of rockets and the testing of rockets. And Rita Jabri Markwell, who's a great international lawyer in the looking at international war crimes. Yeah, we've got these things coming up, and free Palestine.
Present Wilf Italy, I'm Patrizia Sterpetti, the secretary. This communication of mine come just 9 days before the June 50 hearing in Pordenone, before a judge who has not dismissed the criminal complaint filed by a group of 16 activists regarding the importation and possession at the military base of Gedi and Aviano of nuclear weapons, 50 in Aviano and 20 in Gedi, specifically of the B61-3, B61-4 and B61-12, weapon that must be carried by fighter bombers to be delivered to the target. For this reason, Italy and the European state participating in nuclear sharing must purchase F-35 from the US to have a modern carrier certified for the transport and use of nuclear weapons. But who are these activists? They are members of peace and environment movement, and the organization among ICAN Italy member is the executive committee of Wilf Italy, which follow the disarmament effort of Wilf International, as well as some members of Pax Christi Italy and members of Mondo Senza Guerre e Senza Violenza. There are also former politicians from the Green Party, historians, educators, psychiatrists, university professors, physicists. Carlo Rovelli recently published a book, The Bad Conscience of Physicists. There are enough nuclear weapons to burn humanity alive, and we are arguing. This is not the first complaint filed regarding the presence of nuclear bomb. The most recent one dates back to the 2007 Sifoto Processo alle Atomiche, which concluded without any charge being filed against the military authorities. More than 10 years later, the initiative to file a new criminal complaint came again from a lawyer with Yalana Italia, Joachim Lowe. In 2021, 22 individuals and organizations commissioned a legal study on the specific Italian case from a team of legal experts of Yalana Italia. The study resulted in a book published in 2022, first in Italian and then in English, Legal Opinion on the Presence of Nuclear Weapons in Italy, which established that since Italy has full jurisdiction of the military bases in Gedi and Aviano, it is possible to establish the illegality of nuclear weapons under Italian law, which have not been enforced to that. This law regarding the possession or introduction of a nuclear bomb in the Italian state without authorization from the authority are both Law 895 of 1977, which provide for a penalty up to the 12 years in prison for this offense, Article 28 of TULPS, Consolidated Law on Public Security of 1931, and Law 110 of 1975 on the control of weapons. With regard specifically to importation of atomic bombs, Law number 185 of 1990, aptly which prohibit without authorization from the competent authority the movement of defense-related product, including atomic weapon, which such activities conflict with the Italian Constitution, which repudiated war as a means of resolving international disputes. According to statement of Hans Christensen in March 2025, the old B-61-3 and B-61-4 bombs were replaced with a new B-61-12 bombs. Furthermore, in 1975, Italy ratified the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which requires states not to receive or acquire direct or indirect control over nuclear weapons and to pursue nuclear disarmament. In October 2024, a criminal complaint was filed with the Public Prosecutor Office of Court of Rome, but it was dismissed after 9 days without any notification to the complainants. The reason given was that these were political decisions not subjected to judicial review. Our lawyer, however, argued that the judge is accountable only to the law and cannot back down in the face of administrative or political decision if there are legal constraints. We therefore refiled our complaint in October 2, 2025 in Gedi, Brescia, and Aviano Pordenone in order to prosecute not those who made the decision but those who carried them out. In Brescia, the complaint was again dismissed without going before a judge on the ground that no crime has been committed. In Pordenone, we, the complainants, were not notified of the dismissal. Our lawyer responded by asserting our right to notification, given that the signatory organizations, such as WILF Italy, have received a Nobel Peace Prize alongside ICANN. The objection filed via brief was accepted by the judge, was scheduled a hearing for June 15. What are we hoping for? The fact that the preliminary investigating judge did not grant the public prosecutor request to dismiss the case and has scheduled a hearing suggests that in absence of identifying those responsible for the complete lack of investigation, she intends to order future investigation. For example, to verify the presence of nuclear weapons, which have thus far been cancelled under military secrecy. All of this is taking place at a particular historical juncture because Trump US administration would like to disengage militarily from Europe, and countries like France are positioning themselves as a key player in nuclear deterrence. The path toward abolishing military base, of which there are 120 in Italy, and the withdrawal of nuclear weapons is our alternative. Civil society is ready to take this leap, to implement this choice in a democratic and informed manner. Official politics is not yet ready. This should be a moment to free ourselves outside for nuclear sharing because it is illegal to gain sovereignty over US, NATO and nuclear weapons. That is why we are currently demonstrating in Aviano against war, rearmament and nuclear warheads, and why I had to send you a video message. This year, Italy is celebrating the 80th anniversary of the founding of the Republic. It is time to uphold Article 11 of our Constitution. Italy repudiated war as an instrument of aggression and as a means of resolving international disputes. Thank you. Bye.
Hi, lovely to see everybody, and thank you so much for all the really important contributions so far. It's just so helpful in terms of, having a kind of global understanding of the latest dynamics. So I'm looking at the situation here in Britain. I'm going to sort of focus on some of the protests that we've had around US bases in Britain, but I just wanted to give a bit of political context first. So we have got a really huge struggle in this country now over the direction it's taking regarding militarism. The Labour government has been pushing through big military spending increases, but these are very unpopular. We just had elections in May. These weren't like it wasn't like the general election, but it was elections for devolved powers like in Wales and Scotland, and also local elections in the country. And it's, a kind of indication of how things are going for the ruling party. It was an absolute disaster for the Labour government, as I say, which has been prioritising these big increases, not only in terms of military spending, but also in terms of expanding Britain's nuclear capability. The results really show a kind of rejection of its wrong priorities, because we're seeing huge increases in austerity. Now, Labour lost most of its votes to progressive alternative parties that are promoting peace, anti-militarism, and have a very clear anti-nuclear position. So the Green Party, which here in Britain has a very good principled position on these issues, but also in Wales, the Labour Party lost the leadership of the Welsh Assembly to Plaid Cymru. That's the Party of Wales. Very sort of strong kind of strongly identifies with the sort of the sovereignty of the people of Wales. Very strongly anti-nuclear party. So that's all very significant and positive for the peace movement. But we also saw this big sort of surge for a far-right party reform, which is obviously a very serious situation. Obviously, we're seeing this across Europe. Here, just like across Europe, they are exploiting the economic crisis to whip up racism and hatred. Here they're basically kind of mouthpieces for Trump's politics. So as I say, this means that we've got this very kind of serious kind of central struggle in Britain, which is around militarism and the economic impact of war. And of course, we're in a situation where there is a worsening cost of living crisis, in a situation where we haven't even felt the real impact yet of the impact from the Iran war, in relation to the Strait of Hormuz. So in terms
Sophie, please, there is a plea in the chat. Please speak slowly.
Sorry.
You are very rapid.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So yes, so we have a situation here where we the militarism and the economic impact of war is like a really central struggle here in Britain, and we're in a situation where the government is trying to increase military spending even further, whilst we are just in the stages of feeling the ill impact of the economic crisis caused by the illegal war on Iran. So in terms of increases in energy prices and food prices. So, this is a very kind of serious and central struggle here in Britain. But alongside that kind of economic crisis and that struggle, we also have growing opposition to Trump and the war drive, and also Britain's military alliance with the US. So that's the kind of the context that I'm kind of looking at the sort of campaigning that's happening around the US military bases in Britain. So I hope that's okay. So yes, Britain we now have about 19 US military bases here. we basically handed over military bases to the US at the end of the Second World War. Britain is totally subordinated to the US militarily, totally dependent on the US for our nuclear weapons system. And certainly, Britain is and these bases are there to project US power and to carry out, US-led wars, dragging Britain into a series of illegal wars. Since Trump's re-election, there has been an increasing opposition to Britain's so-called special relationship with the US. So Trump's threat to take Greenland just after illegally attacking Venezuela and kidnapping the president there, this threat to Greenland prompted quite a crisis, didn't it, within sort of the NATO alliance, and certainly in Britain. It kind of prompted a response from the Green Party leader here in this country to say, well, look, if the US is going to take Greenland, then Britain should say we are going to close all US military bases. And that received a great deal of positive support. Polling showed that 55% of the population supported this call to close down US bases. So that's the kind of context that we're in. So I just want to look at two US military bases and what's going on there and how we're opposing them. So Lakenheath, this is the biggest US airbase in Britain. It's part of the NATO program across Europe that is now hosting this new generation of US nuclear bombs, these B-6112s. So there's absolutely overwhelming evidence now that these nuclear bombs were delivered to Lakenheath last summer, despite, total secrecy. We've got campaigners on the ground at that base, but also tracking, flight information. And it was clear that transport planes that are vetted to transport nuclear weapons arrived at Lakenheath twice in the summer last year. Now, this is very significant. This is the first time that Britain is hosting US nuclear weapons since 2008, but also it's very significant in terms of this is actually an expansion in terms of the number of NATO bases across Europe that now are hosting nuclear weapons. That's the first time there's been an increase since the Cold War. So, very significant. Now, there is considerable opposition to US nuclear weapons on British soil, and that's going up. It's now 61% of the population are against these nuclear weapons, and we know that that's part of a wider trend across Europe, the population's not wanting any kind of US military presence, as well as hosting these nuclear bombs. The base has also been involved in the illegal military action against Iran. So in the run-up to the war in February, there was a lot of flight activity at the base where you had F-15s, F-35s, these fighter jets being flown into Lakenheath and then flying out to US bases in places like Jordan. So totally preparing for the military operation on Iran. Now, because of this, and as I say, because of the kind of increased awareness about the fact that Britain now has US nuclear weapons and this growing opposition to the alliance with Trump, we've been able to have more actions at Lakenheath, and I would say kind of certainly more effective actions, especially around non-violent direct action. I'm sure many people here will have been to the International Peace Conference that we organised in 2024 around the time of a blockade at the base, which was, brought in, sort of a good few hundred people. But this year, when we had the blockade in April, this was during, the sort of height, I suppose, of the illegal war on Iran. And at the time, in the news, there was the case of an F-15 US fighter jet that had been shot down over Iran, and it was clear that that fighter jet had come from Lakenheath. So there was a lot of increased kind of awareness at the base. And we had a much bigger kind of protest, a lot more kind of media coverage around it. We had new people coming up to the base for the first time, getting involved in the blockade. And there was also a lot more arrestable actions taking place there. And I think it was also, a lot more young people involved, but also there was a strengthening of the coordination with Palestine groups that are carrying out non-violent direct action, and we had like 3 sustained days of arrestable actions taking place. So that's a kind of a big step up in terms of the activity there, and that is only going to intensify. Then the next base I wanted to just talk about is RAF Fairford. This is in Gloucestershire. So Fairford has the longest. Its long runway means that it's the only base in Europe where these US long-range bombers can take off and land from. So that's why it's absolutely central in the US war drive, and it's been absolutely central in the illegal war on Iran. So we had huge, B-1, B-2, B-52 bombers carrying out twice daily bombing missions from this base, dropping, 2,000-pound bombs on Iran before returning, directly to Fairford. Now, the government has been desperately trying to distance itself from Trump, and from the Iran war, sort of arguing that these bases were only being used for defensive actions. But it's really clear that the British government, actually has no say over those deployments and has no oversight. So it's again becoming clearer and clearer to people, the sort of the subordination of Britain to this war. But we know that military exercises are taking place even though there's a ceasefire going on, and it's clear that they're preparing for further escalations. So 70% of the population in Britain do not want the UK to be involved in the war on Iran. We had a really important demonstration and march there in April. I think the last time there was a march at Fairford was in 2003. For the Iraq war. So, this is a big development, and it was very significant because it brought together the anti-war movement, the peace movement, the Iranian community, that opposes war. It brought in the environmental and climate movement, and all those people who've been involved in direct action, as I say, against Israel's genocide. So a very, very important alliance there. And yeah, the demonstration got a lot of publicity, and it's kind of strengthening, a new campaign to sort of set up there, basically. So that's kind of happening. And then the final thing I just want to finish on is there's another sort of a new site of struggle against sort of US for a new US base in Britain, which is coming from Wales. So as part of the AUKUS treaty with the US and Australia, Britain is wanting to give planning permission for the US to have a huge ground-based radar system to track and provide targeting capabilities against objects in space. So that's basically satellites. another sort of space technology of basically China and Russia. That's what the focus is on. But there's been a very, very dynamic local campaign against this base for all manner of reasons in terms of health, environment, and political as well. And it sort of reminds me of, people will remember this, the amazing campaign that was led by I think it was the mayor of Brdy in the Czech Republic, that basically sort of stopped a radar base from being built there. It's very sort of similar, kind of very inclusive, dynamic local campaign. Now, because of the elections that have taken place, so Plaid Cymru, this anti-nuclear, anti-militaristic party, is now leading the Welsh government, and they have come out clearly saying that they oppose the building of this radar base. And so we're now likely going to see this kind of big struggle between the Welsh government and the British government, trying to impose this US radar base on the people of Wales. So we think that's going to be a sort of significant struggle, and we will all be kind of piling into that. So in conclusion, we are strengthening our basis action. We're building on all the increased awareness. We're building on this kind of anti-Trump sentiment and the high opposition to war on Iran. For us, it's absolutely critical that we keep making the arguments about how these US military bases don't make us safe, they just make us a target. Not only in terms of, are they, making the world more dangerous, but also they're driving, this US military alliance is, of course, driving and shaping this economic crisis too. And that economic side of our campaigning, we are working really closely with trade unions on this to really build the alternatives to war and militarism, and a kind of a transition away from militarism to renewable energy, social good, that kind of thing. And that's going very well. That's it.
Thank you so much, Sophie, for your presentation. I think people is going to try again to share the video. You have
yes.
10 minutes, Christine, and then...
Oh, that's great. Please give me in half the time the problems. Remember me. The airbase Ramstein is a very important place for all the wars driven by the United States of America. And it was visible and remarkable before the war of the United States against and Israel against Iran at the 28th of February this year, that there will be a war soon, because there was a lot of traffic on this airport, not only from civilian but also from military machines. They were going up and down. Sometimes every minute they are doing landing and starting. It was the Lockheed Hercules and the Global Master 3, really big airplanes, and also civil machines to take all other equipment to the war zone in the West Asia, not the Middle East, in West Asia. And with all these observations, you see that this was before the war started. It was the choreography of a war over thousands of kilometers away, but it was all managed by the airbase Ramstein, and the airbase Ramstein is the biggest airbase outside. It's like a really small town. They have everything in, and about 50,000 people there involved, and they have flats and apartments and stores, everything you need, and restaurants. And this was in a very busy things. All these flights were documented, and
yes, hello. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we
Oh, that's very
can.
fine. My name is Arnold Kabaya. I'm PR coordinating the Stop Airbase Ramstein action. And we are going to have a peace camp nearby the airbase. And it's from the 20th to the 28th of June this year. And we're coming together, having a nice time, talking about all these problems. And 27th of June, we are going to have a demonstration in front of the port, the ports of the airbase. And we hope a lot of people are going to come, especially because of the political and military situation at this world, actually. We got a very important person speaking on the 26th in Kaiserslautern. It's Gabriele Krone-Schmalz. I hope you know her, and I know you know her. She was a long time in Moscow, and she is now always having nice informations about all these history going on, actually. It was very interesting to listen to her and to see both sides of the story. A lot of actions are now going on at the airport, airbase Ramstein. There are a lot of transports going to the Near East, and they have all these data going over this center of airbase Ramstein for all these drone shit and these horrible attacks against people, whether military, whether civilians, they don't care. And that's why we are going to have these peace camp every year since 2015. We're going there every year, and we are coming together, discussing these problems, have music, just coming together, have a nice time, and political action. Christine is one of the very important persons from all the beginning of these peace camp, and I'm very sorry that she's not going to speak anymore today. She has a lot of more information than me. Yeah. Okay, I think that's enough. That's all I have to say. We are going on to fight. We are not stopping it. We are going on, and I hope there will be a change. But I'm old enough to know that it's a very nice wish, but who knows what's going on in the near future, looking at the politicians and the military actions that are happening now. Thank you for listening, And sorry, Christine, that you may not speak now. Sorry for that. Thank you for letting me speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to both of you for sharing. Next, we're going to go to Spain, and Yolanda will read Juan José Ruiz's statement.
Okay, so my name is Yolanda. I am from Women in Black Against the War in Spain, as well from the anti-militarist movement, together with Juan José. He's reading this text I'm going to read, and he is there as well listening in case you have to ask any questions. Well, I'll tell you first a bit of an introduction to the history. The American bases in Spain are a direct consequence of the Cold War and the Franco dictatorship, as General Franco chose to end his international isolation through agreements with the Holy See and the United States, in contrast to Warsaw Pact. El Puerto de Santa María is one of the places where the bases of all these bases, Torrejón and Morón, etc. But the most important is Rota, located in el Puerto de Santa María, where Juan José lives. After the dictator's death, Spain joined NATO in 1981. The first protests against the base arose in the wake of the NATO referendum, March 12, 1986. In subsequent years, a series of expansions took place, such as the installation of the missile defense shield, which ultimately has been transformed into a major essential base for NATO and American interest in Europe, in Middle East, North Africa, and the Mediterranean. As early as the 1980s, marches began to be organized against the two main U.S. military bases in Andalusia, Rota and Morón. Since 1986, a march to Rota has been held annually, reaching its 32nd edition in 2018, making it the longest running and most significant pacifist and anti-militarist activity in Andalusia. It brings together pacifist groups, political parties, unions, NGOs, and environmental and feminist collectives, almost always starting at the center of El Puerto de Santa María and covering about 6 kilometers to the vicinity of one of the gates of the military base. Who lives in the base and what's all about these jobs people talk about? When the number of participants have varied according to national and international events, from a few hundred people to several thousand, around 30,000 people in 2003. Despite the fact that 800,000 people live around the base and that it poses a risk to the public, there are no civil protection, emergency, or evacuation plans, even though there are educational centers within the base. Nuclear submarines sometimes dock in its port, and thousands of aircrafts cross the skies of the Bay of Cadiz every year, sometimes continuously, as during the Gulf crisis. The infamous flights to Guantanamo made a stop in Rota, one of the bases. A large part of the population focuses on the economic benefits of the base and refuses to consider its dangers. Currently, there are about 1,100 workers at the Rota and Morón bases, although the number has been decreasing more and more. Bases importance. Morón and Rota are the two U.S. military bases scattered around the world, serving as one of the most important tools to reinforcing its military power, securing its political and economical interests, and projecting its nuclear force as some of their store atomic bombs. The Morón and Rota military bases were essential in the past wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, having been used as a launch point for bombers, for refueling aircraft in flight, for logistical support, and even as a stopover, as I said before, for the transfer of prisoners taken to Guantanamo Bay detention camp. Spain has always ceded the use of the base to the US so that the Sixth Fleet can operate as it pleases. All this despite the fact that the use is governed by bilateral agreement between Spain and the US, which in Chapter 3, Article 24 states Spain's full sovereignty and control over its territory and spaces. But it doesn't seem to happen. US military support for Israel has been essential to perpetrating the genocide of the Palestinian people. And the US bases in Moron, Rota, and the Middle East have become vital centers in Israeli and US attacks against Iran, as they are used to launch precision airstrikes, deploy reconnaissance aircraft to gather intelligence, secure supply and ammunition lines for deployed forces, and manage coordination between different military units. Pedro Sanchez, our president, is known by the no to work sentence, but is a bit contradictory due to his military support for Ukraine and the extreme high military investment in rearmament policies alongside the European Union, but also because of the investments in expanding the Moron and Rota air bases, which is happening now. They are expanding. It's also humiliating because of the apology used by Margaret Robles, our Minister of Defense, and Minister Alvarez, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, to the media following the declaration of limits of the use of Spanish airspace, in which they asserted that Spain is a faithful, loyal, and reliable ally to NATO. The investment for the expansion at the Rota base will include new fuel tanks, a maintenance contract for US ships with Navantia, a factory in Spain, expansion and the docking piers, and a strategic air transport hangar. It's all going to be expanded. At the Moron base, a new mega contract with a multi-million euro package of works will be awarded to modernize the base. This plan will allow for the execution of a wide range of projects for the design, repair, renovation, and construction of infrastructure, including 15 new generation semi-buried ammunition depots. It's important to explain to the public that resources allocated to the militarism, as its words, come at the expense of the most basic social needs, such as health care, education, and social service, for dependent individuals. Public services already at risk due to the privatization seal of economic elites seeking to profit at the expense of this essential service. This is the main aim of our campaigns, not what rearmament takes off from our social investment. The anti-bases movement here is a bit of a problem. Anti-militarist, pacifist, feminist, environmentalists, and anti-imperialist social movements, as well as political parties and unions in Spain, have been denouncing the presence of these places, from which the death and destruction of other peoples is orchestrated for political, geostrategic, and economic interests for decades. Marches to the military bases have been a symbol of unity since 1986 NATO referendum. We need to regain unity because we haven't got it at the moment. We need to regain unity and consensus for the marches to Rota. We have been organizing unilaterally since 2021. This unilateral march has been organized by one of the many communist parties we have, and they don't want to join with other different movements. But the march to Rota, it's in crisis due to a sector of the left that gives total support to Putin and does not accept pacifist criticisms of the Russian government. This is with the Rota, no, there is no unity. But it's not like that in Moron, in the other base. We denounce wars as the cause of the greatest harm to humanity, causing death and destruction, refugee crisis, and sometimes irreparable environmental damage to our planet. As this year's campaign slogan against global military spending states, war cost us a wall. We therefore demand the dismantling and repurposing of the military bases and Spain withdrawal from NATO. Wars must end bombing masses, civilians must be protected, and international law must be respected. Solidarity, justice, and peace are not optional. They are a shared responsibility of humanity, and we must all get involved to defend them against the machinery of war, building a genuine culture of peace. And to finish with, I would say, the anti-militarist and peace movement is as important as the climate movement against climate change or the feminist movement. It's necessary to establish links between these three movements and promote their values to a new generation of young people. This is the challenge we face in order to continue the fight against military bases on our territory. And that's it, what we have. In case you have any questions, we can ask Juan Jose. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you a lot, Yolanda. Thank you so much. We're going to have time at the end for question. And yeah, if you want to put them in the chat also in the meantime, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And next we have Marie Sigonieux from France. And I think she also wanted to have this presentation or the transcript of what she's going to read. Yes, so it's amazing. So as soon as we have it. Hi,
Yes.
thank you, Marie.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to apologize for my English and my accent. They are not perfect, but I'm doing my best. My name is Mary. I have been a member of the association Sortir du nucléaire pays nantais, Nantes in France, in the west coast, for about 20 years. Our organization campaigns against both civilian and military nuclear power. Yes. In France, nuclear energy plays a major role. The country operates 54 nuclear reactors and developed a large nuclear program under General de Gaulle. You know General de Gaulle? To support its nuclear deterrence policy. Civilian nuclear energy and military nuclear technology are closely linked. You know it, yes, you know it. Excuse me, I'm a little difficult for me. So, after building the 3 aircraft carriers, one of which, the Foch, now lies at the bottom of the ocean, President Macron has announced plans to build a new one at an estimated cost of 12 billion euros. The nuclear propulsion system for this future aircraft carrier is expected to be built near Nantes by Naval Group and then transport to Saint-Nazaire, where the vessel will be assembled and complete. I think, can you? Yes. This is why anti-war demonstrations were organized on 8 and 9 May, with a particular focus on opposition to this construction of this new aircraft carrier. I would encourage you to read the excellent article published by Reporter on this issue. Reporter, you know? Reporter? No. Interestingly, the journalist who wrote it, Leah Gage, is a partner of Andreas Mann, whom some of you may already know. So you have the the address for reporter. Okay. So what we find striking about French politics is that the government claims there is no more money for education. Yes, okay. And healthcare and other essential social service, while at the same time it's prepared to spend billions of euros on military projects and technologies that carry significant and environmental issues. I'm really sorry for my accent. Voilà, that's crazy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marie. And
I'm sorry. Yes, you have. They burned the aircraft carriers on the beach.
thank you, Marie.
I'm sorry.
No, don't say sorry. Thank you so much for speaking. It was really good. And thank you for making the effort. And we're gonna share the link of the article you shared in the presentation. And next is Edward Organ from Ireland, who's gonna talk about Shannon Airport.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Thank you for organising this very important seminar or webinar. My name is Edward Horgan. I live near Shannon Airport in the west of Ireland. I served in the Irish Defence Forces and I'm a former United Nations peacekeeper. In Ireland, especially since the genocide in Gaza, which began in 2023, there's been a lot of support and peace activism in Ireland, and especially involves women and people of the younger generation. Shannon Airport in the west of Ireland has been used by the US military since the end of the Cold War, thereby making it a de facto military base. All Irish governments since 1939 have publicly stated that Ireland is a neutral country. This neutral policy is supported by the vast majority of the Irish people, and it obliges the Irish government to comply with international laws on neutrality. After the 9/11 attacks on the United States, the Irish government offered the use of Shannon Airport to US military forces involved in the invasion of Afghanistan and the overthrow of the Afghan government. This was a breach of the UN Charter by the US and a breach of international laws on neutrality
Edward.
by the Irish government.
Edward, people are saying you're speaking too fast, like I was.
Okay. Okay, a friend of mine used to joke when he was told you're speaking too fast. Well, if I'm speaking too fast, you'll have to listen more quickly, but I will try and slow down a little bit. On the 11th of November 2001, I helped to organise a protest at Shannon Airport, and I have continued my protest and peace actions at Shannon Airport over the past 25 years. Since 2001, up to 4 million armed US soldiers have passed through Shannon Airport on their way to and from the Middle East and Europe, including during the illegal wars against Serbia in 1999, Afghanistan from 2001 to 2021, the Afghan War 2003, and the overthrow of the Libyan government in 2011. It's not just a matter of breaches of international laws. Several million people, mainly civilians, and especially children, have died due to these wars. More recently, the Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people, in which the US has been actively involved, has caused the deaths of up to 100,000 people in Gaza, including over 22,000 children. By allowing the US military to use Shannon Airport, this makes the Irish government complicit in genocide and in contravention of Article 3 of the Genocide Convention. More recently, the US and Israel have been bombing Iran in an unjustified excuse that Iran might develop nuclear weapons. On the 28th of February, US Tomahawk cruise missiles killed over 150 young girls in Minab school in Iran. Well over 3,000 Lebanese people have already been killed in the recent Israeli attacks on Lebanon that are supported by US munitions. The Irish government has stated on several occasions that permission is given to US aircraft to use Shannon Airport on strict conditions that they are unarmed, carry no arms or ammunition, and do not engage in military intelligence gathering, and the flight is not involved in a military operation. These government statements are false for several reasons, including the fact that no military aircraft ever leaves the United States unless it is on a military exercise. These US soldiers are authorized by the Irish government to bring automatic rifles through Shannon Airport. This means that at least 4 million US weapons have been transported through Shannon Airport in breach of international laws and neutrality. None of these aircraft have ever been searched or investigated by the Irish authorities. Separately, Shannon Airport was used on multiple occasions by US government and CIA-associated aircrafts that were involved in the extraordinary rendition program, where prisoners were kidnapped, transported to various locations, including Guantanamo, where many of them were tortured. Over 100 individual peace activist cases have been brought before the courts in Ireland, resulting from protests and non-violent actions at Shannon Airport. Yet no actions have been taken by the Irish government to end Irish complicity in war crimes and genocide. I have been one of the peace activists who has been arrested and prosecuted on 8 occasions at Shannon Airport for undertaking peace protests at Shannon Airport. In all but one of these, I was found not guilty, and in the one case I was found guilty, it's now gone to the Supreme Court for decision. In March 2003, I took a High Court action against the US government. While I lost the constitutional issues, the High Court ruled that the Irish government was in breach of international laws on neutrality. In June 2004, I and other peace activists attempted to arrest the US President George W. Bush at Shannon Airport. We didn't succeed. It was mainly a very successful stunt to show he was unwelcome. Next September 2026, US President Donald Trump plans to visit Ireland, where he owns a golf club not far from Shannon Airport. Perhaps he might be arrested for war crimes. The protests at Shannon Airport are ongoing on a weekly basis, and 14 peace activists are still before the court in relation to these protests and Palestine Action events. And it's good to see in particular that there are many young people involved in taking peace activists. On at least 4 occasions in recent months, peace activists have gone into Shannon Airport trespassing and have done damage to Shannon Airport or to US aircraft at Shannon Airport. Finally, over the past few days and the past week in particular, up to 10 US military aircraft have been refueled at Shannon Airport, including 4 Hercules C-130s on their way to and from the Middle East. Also, a civilian aircraft carrying troops to Shannon Airport has been refueled. Meanwhile, the killing and destruction and environmental and vital infrastructure by the US and Israel and others continue on a daily basis. While such crimes against humanity are being committed, it's very important that all of us don't stand idly by and do nothing. So whatever you do, please take action, and actions speak louder than words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edward. Thank you so much for your presentation. And next we have Eerste ter Heggen from the Netherlands. Yeah, the presentation that we had, I think this from...
Yes, there are some photographs. The last one there, in fact, you can see at the moment shows a protester on the 11th of April this year, who managed to climb onto a Hercules C-130 and do considerable damage to the aircraft. He is now before the court, and similar actions have been taken by 14 other individuals, all of them much younger than I, and it's great to see the younger generation in particular, and in particular the women of Ireland, are very active in the protests and in the peace movement. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Edward.
You're welcome.
And thank you for sharing the picture. Okay, so now Ilse, you can go.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Ilse. I'm speaking to you from Leeuwarden, the Netherlands, in the province of Friesland. A few kilometers behind me is Leeuwarden Air Base, one of the most active, most toxic, and most symbolically important NATO military sites in Northern Europe. I am an activist, organizer, and musician. I sing and write songs for a punk band. And this year, I also led an election campaign trying to get elected as municipal council member for Mayor 25. For years, I have been walking, marching, and demonstrating outside the fence of this airbase, together with multiple activists, mostly local action groups, like Geen Ruimte voor Defensie and Vlieg Op. Because what happens inside that fence affects everything outside it: our water, our soil, plants and animals, our reproductive health, our children's health, and our planet. And that's just besides the anti-militarism, of course. The deafening sound of those aircraft taking off and flying low over the poorest neighborhoods of our city is a daily reminder of war and suffering all over the globe, and of the future illness their toxic waste will cause. Today, I want to give you a short tour of 3 things. What NATO is doing at Leeuwarden, what that does to our land and bodies, and how we are fighting back in Leeuwarden. Leeuwarden Air Base is not a sleepy base, it's a frontline NATO hub. It's home to Dutch F-35 stealth fighters, the most expensive and deadly jets in the Alliance arsenal. It also houses a 322nd Squadron, which is permanently on standby for NATO's rapid reaction forces. During major NATO exercises, like Ramstein Flag or Frisian Flag, this small base in a quiet farming province, small town, launches up to 80 military flights per day. That's 80 fighter jets, drones, refueling planes, shaking the flats, polluting the air, and normalizing war as a daily reality. The United States military is embedded here. US F-35s and helicopter units regularly deployed to Leeuwarden. And this base is not Dutch, it's NATO. And NATO is, of course, an extension of US military strategy in Europe. But let me tell you what the official brochures of the airbase don't mention: the poison. For decades, the military used toxic firefighting foam containing PFAS, forever chemicals, during training exercises. These chemicals do not break down in nature. They accumulate in soil, groundwater, fish, livestock, and in human blood. In this sense, Leeuwarden represents a sacrifice zone, a community, Friesland, whose land and water are being poisoned to facilitate NATO's offensive readiness. In 2024, water authorities tested Jelsomervaart, a canal directly next to the airbase. They found PFAS levels 900 times above the legal norm. 900 times. Since then, high levels of PFAS have been found in surrounding waterways, in fish, in the eggs from local chickens. There are now fishing and swimming bans in the surrounding waterways. And the outrageous part is that the Netherlands can't even process its own PFAS waste. We have no incinerators hot enough to destroy these chemicals safely. So the toxic soil is dug up and shipped across the border to Belgium. We export our poison. We outsource our environmental crime. And that's not an accident, it's the normal functioning of a military system that treats ecological health as disposable. So I've been active against this base for years. A couple of years ago, I joined a walking, biking, and skating tour around the entire perimeter of the airbase. Step by step, we circled the fence, reclaiming the land for military logic together as slow, patient, visible resistance. I've also picketed with action groups outside municipal information events about the airbase expansion. Last year, we organized a larger demonstration through the streets of Leeuwarden with hundreds of people, from peace groups to climate justice activists to local farmers, all saying no more flights, no more poison, no more war. Next week, we are doing it again. Under the Stop Rearm Europe banner, multiple organizations are coming together for a major demonstration in Leeuwarden. Because right now, NATO and European Union are ramping up military spending to levels not seen since the Cold War. They call it security, I call it a suicide pact with the arms industry, maximizing weapons trade to profit off of death. So I also write songs as activism. I'm in a punk band, and some of our songs are directly about the Leeuwarden airbase. So I'll share a lyric with you from our song from our upcoming album. NATO power staring up the peaceful skies, fighter pilots ready to destroy thousands of lives. American warheads authorize the threat. More pollution, more weapons, more war, more murder, more profit. That's not poetry for poetry's sake. That's the plain truth of what happens here. Every F-35 that takes off from Leeuwarden is a weapon designed to end lives. Every training mission normalizes the idea that mass violence is acceptable. And behind it all is the military-industrial complex, turning death into a growth sector. Punk is not just music for me, it is the sound of not accepting things. It's fast, angry, joyful, and collective. When we play a song like that, about jets screaming overhead, about the paphos in the water, about the generals making decisions far away, people listen differently. They feel it in their bodies. Music reaches places that political speeches can't. It gets into your bones. It makes resistance feel possible, even fun, even beautiful. So I want to encourage everyone who's listening to find your form of resistance. Marching is one way, organizing, writing is another, and singing is one of mine. None of them are small. Leeuwarden Air Base is not just a military installation, it's a machine that produces war readiness and environmental destruction in equal measure, and it relies on our silence. But we are not silent, we talk. We march, we sing and organize. Next week we'll be in the streets of Leeuwarden, and this week we'll be rehearsing with a choir to sing at the demonstration, and after that we will keep going. The demonstration that we're organizing is under the banner of Stop Rearm Europe, which we're organizing with many different peace movements here in Leeuwarden. So thank you for having me, and solidarity.
Thank you so much, Ilse. Thank you for the inspiring words. I think it was really nice to end with this. Now we're gonna have a question and answer session. So if you wanna put question, can either put them in the chat or in the Q&A box. Or if you feel like you prefer to talk, you can also raise your hands. And I see that Agneta is there and Hab. I don't know if she wanted to ask a question, maybe.
Can I speak now? Can
Yes.
I say something? Hello.
Yes, you can.
Well, I have a question. Why is not the entire North mentioned or invited to take part in this? In Sweden solely, there are 17 US military bases. In Finland, Norway, and the entire North, together it is 40 military bases. And if you read the strategy that Pentagon has put forward, the North will be the launching pad for the coming war. So that's my question. How come that Sweden, Norway, and Finland is not mentioned in this discussion about US military bases? Only in Sweden, we have 17. Now it is confirmed by all military left and right parliamentarians just some weeks ago. So that's my question. How come that this is overlooked? I don't know who to reach but it has to be forward. Thank you.
I think Ulla can respond maybe to this. Are you muted, Ulla?
You have to put on your mic.
Yeah.
It is on, I think. Oh dear.
Okay, we can hear you now.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, Agneta, but as you can see and hear from this webinar, we are already overloaded by information. And the idea was actually to present the ones who have been there for a long time and resisting for a long time, like Edward and the ones in Netherlands and so on. And I'm sorry to say, but I haven't seen any really active resistance against the US bases and against NATO in the Nordic countries. There has been small demonstrations, but nothing that we could be really proud of. So I think we shall take the scene once we have showed that we have the courage to do something really tough. So I'm sorry, Agneta, this time, but we can do it again and then maybe present some actions also in the Nordic countries. Thank you.
Well, I can answer what you said, that this seminar is also, in a way, an information seminar. I doubt that those who are here are really aware of the situation. So that's why I wanted to comment. I agree with you. There is not, as the parliamentarians have agreed, that this is a good thing, but this in fact is a dangerous, horrifying information that the entire parliament in Sweden agreed that the United States can attack Russia from 17 military bases. It's a declaration of war, and there we are. So that's why I wanted it to come forward. Thank you.
And now we're going to try.
I'm Maggie Pistorius, and I'm in Australia, and I'm just going to make a quick overview of some of the things that are happening in Australia regarding US military bases. And I'll show you a little bit of the history that I've personally been involved in and what the magnificent people of Australia are involved in with at the moment in their resistance to the US bases. Of course, there's been massive renewed activity since October 7th, 2023. This has been, across the country, of course, but here we have at Alice Springs at Pine Gap, the large US military surveillance and intelligence gathering centre that is at the heart of US operations throughout the world. Here you can see what sorts of bases we have around Australia. This is quite an old picture, and some of these are being updated and renewed. You have a big Air Force base here at Katherine that they're using for actual US operations. You have Darwin, where you have a lot of Marines stationed. You have Perth, which is becoming a centre for submarines. Over here you have Wollongong, which is not even on the map. They're looking for a submarine harbour and base there at Wollongong, though the local people are opposing it greatly. You have a massive area of where they practice Talisman Sabre US Australia invasions in this area here, and they've got Northwest Cape up here, but this is the most significant because of its involvement in US operations. This is me more than 15 years ago now, heading into a very large area about the size of Denmark, where we tried to interfere with the US-Australian training that was going on there. And here we have me with a friend heading up. We're in the boundary of the Pine Gap area here. So again, this sort of idea of pilgrimage or nighttime bushwalking with prayer and music here with my friend Franz Dowling and some other friends. Here we are here at the court the next day after being captured, yes, and then the following year we had a very long court case. So there are two major issues in Australia regarding bases. One is the genocide and the active support of the genocide at Pine Gap as a live operations centre. The second issue is two agreements, the AUKUS agreement and the force posture agreement. Both involve bases, and in these agreements, Australia has agreed to host US Marines, Air Force bombers, missiles and submarines, and facilitate the staging of wars in Asia from Australia. Here's a word from Palestinian activist Rima Nahi, who will be speaking at Pine Gap later this year.
I'm against Pine Gap, not only because I'm Palestinian and I understand that the genocide against my own people is made possible thanks to the intelligence going from the heart of this colony in Alice Springs directly to Israeli occupation forces to target and kill men, women and children in Palestine, as if this is not bad enough. I'm also against it because I do not believe in an ideology that only understands domination. Domination at the expense of human life. This is not a world that I want to leave for my kids and the future generation, especially in the collapse of this world order where international law might seem not so relevant. And look, maybe I can't stop a psychopath, war criminal like Netanyahu, I can't stop a pedophile like Trump from committing more war crimes, but I can hold my own government to account, and I can find where we are complicit in facilitating those crimes and put pressure on my own government.
And just finally, from the people of Western Australia,
Department of War, feel our shore. Down here this morning in Rockingham with the Stop AUKUS group, and we're here to protest the presence of a US nuclear submarine, USS Vermont, that is here docked right now here in our beautiful Coburn Sound. Now, we oppose AUKUS. We oppose spending $368 billion in this horrific deal with the Americans. We oppose war, militarism, and we can think of such better use of this money.
People are starting to get active. There's a big convergence coming towards the end of next month up in Alice Springs. There's some great speakers at that. Karina Lester, who is one of the descendants of the Maralinga folk who were bombed with nuclear bombs by the British, and Auntie Sue Hasseldine, whose country is being colonised for the launch of rockets and the testing of rockets. And Rita Jabri Markwell, who's a great international lawyer in the looking at international war crimes. Yeah, we've got these things coming up, and free Palestine.
Thank you so much for sharing the videos. I'm glad that they worked. I think we can take maybe one or two questions and then finish. Fluk, do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question? I see you have your hands up.
Yes, I would like to, because mostly we heard a lot of what is going on military bases, what are the consequences of the development in society and all these countries all over the world. What we did not discuss is what reasons are there for this development. We didn't talk about ecological disaster. Yeah, we heard about it one time, but who are the economic winners? In Germany, for example, Rheinmetall, yeah, they are gaining a lot of money because of war. We got a lot of lobby workers in politics to influence the politicians to decide for war, just to gain money. The profit is going into the economic winners, and we should talk about education systems in all our countries too, and about information about all these connections between war and economic winners, and who of the lobbyists are going to the politicians to get them to decide for war. So what I would like to ask is, what actions are really planned to get our people know about all these things going on in economic and society?
Ulla?
We would have the recipe, we would have done it already. But if you go into the website of Global Women for Peace United Against NATO, you will see that we have had lots of webinars since we started our actions in 2023. We have covered militarization of schools, we have covered environmental costs, we have covered lots of things. And of course, we have to do it again and again and again. But this time we thought it would be the military bases as one inspiration to move on with our activities. But if you give us, you reach out with your hand, we can do a webinar together on the issues you mentioned. But as I said, we have had it before, and we are cooperating very much with Resist Stop Rearm Europe, and they have a group of especially women working on the militarization of schools, and they are also preparing now something on that. But the hard thing is to get people active. For this webinar, we sent out, I would say, hundreds, more than hundreds, maybe thousands of invitations. And still we were not more than 50 people here at the most. So how can we get hold on people? How can we reach them? That's a big dilemma. And as long as our mainstream media doesn't report anything and give only the view of our political leaders, it's hard to gain space. But the movement against conscription in Germany shows us that there is something happening, and there has been against conscriptions in Netherlands. We just have to join hands and try to get stronger. Thank you.
Thank you for the answer.
Thank you, Ulla.
I would like to say something as well, if it's possible.
Yeah, just very briefly, because I think we need to answer.
I think we have to look at the good examples. Green and Common Women closed the base, the huge Green and Common base. It should be an inspiration. Are you familiar with Green and Common women who were occupying Green and Common close to London from 19...
Of course.
Yeah, some are not. Of course, some are. They are an extraordinary example of how they succeeded in closing the base. And even on, I forgot, the island outside, there are some extraordinary examples we could gather and talk about how they succeeded in closing the bases. There are some. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we're ready to finish. I don't know if Ulla, you want to have like closing words?
Actually not, but
Last question, do we get a record of this session?
Yes, and I will try, because there has been some kind of breaks and there has been some kind of language problems which we have when we are from different continents and countries. I will collect all the speeches and we can send it out to everyone that wants it. So I think most of you have my email. I can still put it, but I don't know if it reaches you in hosts and Paris. But we can send out all the speeches in a paper version, because there was lots and lots of good ideas that we could use. So I ask all the speakers to send their manuscripts. I have some of them, but not all. And we will never give up. We will fight as long as it takes. But of course, Greenham Common, they had to fight for a long time, so we have to be prepared.
Thank you, Ulla. You're right. But it was nice to hear from all the experiences, and thank you for all the speakers, for those who joined as well. And yeah, you will get the recording of this and the videos as well. Thank you so much, and I wish you a nice day, nice Saturday.